I didn't keep to the 15 minutes. I'm sorry.
Oh, we didn't
I
expect
generally have that issue.
we didn't expect you to, Aleem. That's okay. That's okay. Um, it's interesting. You and I have talked about the digital transformation and warranty and what it means. And I go back to the root of my journey in this profession, and it was a paper promise. We made a promise that if it broke, we would fix it, and for the longest time, we operated, we optimized, and I use that very loosely, to be able to execute on servicing and honoring that insurance or risk commitment. And throughout the day today, we've had influencers talk about this journey in digital transformation and what it means and how close it is and near it is to our industry as it is today. Um, One of the things that you made a point just a moment ago that I think really resonated with me. And when that car is purchased, it's a good that was delivered, and I, as a consumer, own that. And no difference if this was a smart water bottle, and I wanted my drinking data. Why shouldn't I be the one in control of that, and not the water company? Correct. And effectively, as you just said there, is the OEM believes that, well, no, I still own that data, and if I choose to monetize that or have you buy that back from me afterwards. And I think that's different than technology components. You own the technology components. You can log into the various platforms and systems and APIs. So, we in the automobile service contract industry, warranty administration, warranty insurance industry, we're looking for ways to meet the requirement of hitting these needs and objectives to modernize our processes, modernize our coverages, but also create value that still resonates for why the warranty or that promise still makes sense. Correct. And what do you see as it relates to warranty outside of auto that may resonate with the folks in the automotive industry when it relates to protecting vehicles or protecting collateral, and how that may make sense in time as we do hit these milestones in digital transformation?
That's a great question, and I see it as a continuum of growth and evolution as technology can support the interplay between all smart devices. And so I think the barriers, or I wouldn't say silos, but the verticals that we have, I think will disappear with time. I think it's governed around connectivity. Anything that has a connectivity framework means, particularly with M2M communication, that whether once your vehicle comes in, it communicates with the garage door opener communicates with your washer and dryer. Sure. And so now all of these data points are amassing, and the mission that consumers are looking for us to fulfill is, how can you ease the pain points I have in my life? Make it easier, make it convenient, and make it seamless.
Sure.
And so I think for entities like ourselves, as warranty providers, one of the biggest transformations that we have to undergo is that we have to make sense of the data. Whereas we've in the past looked at data with respect to fulfilling, whether it be the way the financial integrity of the program is operated, or making decisions related to particular products and services, I think we have to develop processes, and that's why I think a platform is very relevant, because as a third-party administrator, you may focus on digital transformation in the core competencies, but your platform that you're developing will be able to bring in the AI and the RPAs and all of the other capabilities, and that is going to be salient for you to be able to understand more of the surrounding rationale through data about why certain behaviors take place in the vehicle.
Yeah.
And I think you have to become a bigger partner. So I think where I see the transformation because of this permeability is that we will become a very specialized provider related to what we do and how we engage in it digitally through the engines that we are going to provide on the platform. but we will have to interact with everything else and make sense of it.
I think that's a salient point too, as it relates to, I think, the community of our industry to share information, because I think we're all trying to answer the business question, and then the how and the why, and the roadmap to strategically set out a footprint and a plan, and then executable steps to get there, because this is a very detailed approach to the digital transformation. And I know any one of the executive teams sitting at a warranty company or an administrator is going, that's a daunting task.
Yeah.
My job is to maintain what we do today, and I want to make sure my data is clean and my transactional processes are still intact. How do I begin to enter into this digital transformation? What would you suggest in terms of a starting point for an administrator or another warranty company that's saying, I know I need to be part of this, I just don't know how to start?
Right. Excellent question again, Mike. And I think the first thing for that administrator to realize, they can't afford not to if they want to stay in business.
Yeah.
So the lack of action,
Yeah.
or being stunned about what to do because of other priorities will necessarily result in your competitive disadvantage.
Sure.
And the pace of change is extremely rapid. I remember when we had the internet starting, and we talked about iterative cycles moving from 1 year to almost every quarter. Today, as I look at fintechs and insurtechs, every time you go to a conference, on a quarterly basis, there's so many new applications, so many new companies. So the iterations, the impediment is no longer the technology. It's only our creativity.
Yeah.
So for that third-party administrator, they can't afford to make the decision to stand still or pause. Secondly, I think they have to make a decision of what is their core competency. And I don't think necessarily you have to be a technology provider to have that core competency.
Sure.
The legacy in our business has been we do it all.
Yes.
I think that's not a necessarily appropriate model for the way we're transforming ourselves.
Sure.
Industry partners that are dedicated to building platforms and sustaining those platforms, those are your partners.
Yeah.
Best-in-class partners. And you focus on what you're strong at, which is maybe your distribution channel and the augmented services that you can provide. And that's where I think the value you can bring to the equation. And I think that they will be necessarily companies that will not embrace that model, and I don't think they'll survive.
Sure.
And I think that those that use other technology providers to propel their business, first, as much as whatever those cost considerations may be, their prevailing manual processes are probably cost per warranty claim very high if they were to quantify it. And I don't think, given the pressures that consumers are putting us through for lower price points, more services, those systems can survive, in addition to the technology transformation.
That's a great point. 2 points here. The one that really resonated with me, the World Economic Forum study that we all had a chance to read. And for our viewers and our audience, we're going to share this white paper. It's a fascinating white paper. It was written in 2016. It was sponsored by Accenture. Fantastic information about all of these ecosystems related to digital transformation in auto. It mentioned that it's a $3 trillion impact. But more importantly, it talked about the efficiencies and the optimization of all of these types of platforms, technologies, and how we digitize all of this, and how it will reduce costs. It will reduce insurance premiums. It'll create benefit for the end consumer because of those types of things. You and I spent time walking the show at CES. I spent a significant amount of time in the North Hall, and I couldn't believe the technology that's already here, and that is being promoted as being here within a year, within 2 years. What would you say about getting ready sooner rather than later, as it talks about not only being prepared to manage the business in a digital transformative way, but also the modern collateral that we're protecting and creating warranty protection products around?
In terms of timing, it's interesting. I read CIO reports all the time that talk about making these transformations. But I see the diminishment of the number very modestly year after year.
Yeah.
So it's 67% one year that make this their priority, and the next year it's 65.
Yeah.
What happened?
Right.
Right? And I think you can't afford to do that.
Yep.
If it is a priority, you have to allocate for it and execute on it.
Sure.
So I would suggest that while I think that there will be a runway to everything, I think in this particular case, it's going to be those that are at the forefront that will gain market share and be the winners of the game. And I think they'll be more sticky, and they're building platforms. In the past, we had the competition between those that were embracing new platforms and those that had legacy systems. The entities that are building today, like yourselves, are building with scalability, right? And they're also building with sustainability, which to me is very different. Scalability is you can take 1 to 1,000,000. Sustainability is that exactly what you said, iterate for the future.
Yeah.
So the fact that there's going to be this permeable borders and boundaries between different connected devices in your ecosystem, the fact that you're building an application that has scale to be able to incorporate more, because it's about being able to consume volumes of information, make sense of that, and execute in a reliable and timely manner. And so the protocols and processes that you build will be able to be adapted to any data point. And so I think if we look at the warranty industry, the processes, whether they're auto or consumer goods, are not different.
Sure.
The service fulfillment is different, but those are catching up with tremendous technology applications. So drones are now doing inspections in lieu of people. So instead of it being $100 to roll a truck and an inspector, you have a drone in a local area that can do it for a fraction.
Yeah.
You have digital practices that can now do images and vet it out on the web to mitigate fraud and be able to execute digitally a claim. So what I see is the fact that as technology also takes over that service fulfillment domain, an API is all you need.
That's right.
And so the warranty platform can be very easily adapted to many different products.
A lot to digest. Great amount of information. Again, our goal today was to bring influencers of great knowledge and intellect to share with the community here. Any questions from our audience while we have Aleem?
I think you might have actually addressed this later, but you had a slide which had the convergence of the three circles. It was health, automotive, and house. And I get the health. You mentioned Mercedes and heart rates, etc. But the connection between the automobile and the house is an interesting one. And,
yes.
And you talked about garage doors and things like that. Are there other things that that you're aware of,
Sure.
and the interconnectivity between them?
Absolutely. So Weijo on Google side and Alexa from Amazon have both got devices for the car. And so Alexa just released theirs. And so today what you can do is, while you're in the vehicle, you can give Alexa instructions to be able to do things. It's also expected that, here's a case that was actually documented as an example. A consumer in the vehicle is stressed. I mean, I'm just giving you literally what was documented. Highly stressed. So they left work, they were stressed out. Their temperature, body temperature, was also very high, so they probably weren't feeling well. And through sensory devices in the car, they picked up all of this, because you have gesture recognition, facial recognition, like so many different sensory capabilities, that it also configured the home environment to reduce the temperature and actually kick in some nice music, as an example, thinking that that would be sufficient. The premise of all of this is, as these devices are intelligent devices, so they're not just process devices. The entire AI is designed to be able to accrue knowledge about you and build that wealth of understanding, so that it can start, by virtue of your behavior, start engaging in autonomous activity to support you, because you've enabled it to do so. So it is designed to fulfill a whole series of functions without commands. And so that's where I see the congruence, or the connectivity between home and car, is that your car will set up the stage for functions at home. The most rudimentary examples that were prepared before were the fact that the moment you exit, your car will automatically now shut the garage as opposed to you remembering to do so. So that may be a huge safety thing. Another very important thing that we experience with, and I'll ask all of the audience here, you all have a house alarm security system. How many of you actually turn it on every time you leave? Yet your carrier gives you a discount for that service, right? Now, with connectivity, I can know, or I can engage it. I can automatically engage it. So the risk mitigation, which is presumed, which are still manual in execution, can now be completely automated. So if I exit out and the garage door shuts or doesn't shut, by virtue of my car leaving, it'll compel that. Now my washing machine will go on, or because I understand the economics of the electrical consumption, and this is a project that we're working on right now with one of the entities, is how to, in an idle home environment, change the climate control so that there's more economies associated with that. And so I think that these things are becoming now so intertwined from the technology being able to do so. That's what the consumer's expectation are. So how many years ago did you carry a map, the A to Z or A to Z map? Remember, we all had that in England. It was a big wad of a book. We had those maps here. I challenge, how many people have a map today? And getting around, if you don't have your smartphone or GPS, we're all lost. And I think technology is going to do the same thing. It's all driven around the convenience and capabilities of that. And for us, as an insurer, I think what's going to happen, and as data suggests, consumers are desirous of sharing that information to us if they can get value. And so if we as a carrier are able to ensure that they govern themselves in accordance with the terms and conditions of the contract we write, and the difference today compared to everything is that we can actually measure it. And by virtue of measuring it, we can design very highly personalized risk modules. In fact, there's nothing to stop us in time to have a completely dynamic rating model. So if use-based insurance is a function for automobiles because we can see the vehicles going a kilometer or a mile or whatever it is, the value-based proposition that I present out there is the fact that there are inherent obligations to the parties of a contract. They must perform it, and I can now measure you and hold you accountable. So whether they do the oil change in a timely way, I don't know. Now I do, right? And that has a tremendous bearing on the reliability of a vehicle. And on, all of these things add up. And so I think the mindset will change with the consumer. Just as the smartphone is so integral to our well-being. It's impossible to walk outside and not be, stopped by everyone looking at a phone and doing things while they walk and do ridiculous things. And so we're so dependent on that. I think all of this other technology is going to do the same thing in our life. And that's why I think the permeability between these boundaries will be eroded, because consumers are going to expect that from us.
Well, I suggest we create an open forum of discussion amongst people in this industry, because we could spend hours talking about each one of these elements. Thank you so much for sharing this information. This has been a world of information. We'll be putting this information out online to share with our audience, both here and afar. So thank you again, Aleem.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.